All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on a very cold and wet Thursday afternoon for Mastering Meaningful Nonprofit Events, Maximizing Revenue While Preventing Burnout. We appreciate your time this afternoon. We look forward to giving you a great presentation. And before we do so, I'm going to just go over a couple of housekeeping items very quickly. First of all, we are recording this webinar, and we will do some post-recording cleanup and then send everybody a link to the final product in a few days when we have the full recording ready and available. And as always, we will be using the Q&A function on Zoom meetings to answer any questions that people have as they come up through the webinar. So instead of using chat, which was probably be disabled for all of you, please feel free to use the Q&A button, and we will leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the program to answer whatever questions you may have for our guest speaker, Nina. So thank you. As many of you know, my name is Peter Benson. I am a Senior Vice President of Treasury at Park Bank. I lead our treasury management team and also our community engagement team. And if you've followed along with us, I host the webinars that we do focusing on the nonprofit community and topics important to them. And I would like to introduce to you today somebody you may already know, Nina Gehan, who is the co-founder and CEO of MeaningFULL Development and Communications, which was founded in 2022 with her partner, Malcolm. MeaningFULL Development and Communications is a boutique consulting firm dedicated to building equity in the nonprofit sector. And I'm not going to read through all of the words for you, for everybody. I know that you're capable of reading for yourselves, but we are extremely excited to have Nina present to you. She has a great deal of experience working in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years in a variety of fund development and communication roles. She is also the recipient of a 2023 Madison Magazine Amy Award. The Amy Awards spotlight 5 local small business owners who are working to keep the late Amy Gannon's memory and mission alive through their entrepreneurial work. So with that, I will turn over the reins to Nina, and we all look forward to hearing what you have for us today, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate the introduction, and thank you everybody for joining me today. I wanted to say, just to start off, that when we're talking today, this is kind of like a template, maybe like a big picture, right? Every event is different. So when we're thinking through this and when we're looking at these pieces of information, make sure that if you have questions about your specific event and it doesn't necessarily fit what we're talking about, I'd be happy to answer any type of questions in the Q&A. So just wanted to put that out there. So today I'm here with you to talk about mastering meaningful nonprofit events. And meaningful means full of meaning, right? But we all know that in the nonprofit sector, we also need to be able to utilize our events to maximize revenue, but we're often stretched on budgets and on staff. So how can we pull off these types of events with the capacities that we have? I have 3 pictures for you up here. On the left is actually from the scholarship luncheon, the Becca's Award luncheon that we ideated. I took that event from the ideation stage. We've launched, and it has been a recurring event for Centro Hispano since then. In the middle is us at our Evening of Dreaming. So that's more of like this was a music event, large concert, a band coming in from out of town. So a very different type of event again, but showcasing how the team is really together in these spaces. And then finally on the right is basically where it all started. This is a picture of the Lucia Harvest Celebration, which I had started 10 years ago. And actually, ironically, tonight is actually the Lucia Harvest Celebration. So if you have time this evening, I encourage you to stop by. So what will we be talking about today? So first of all, I'll just talk really briefly about me. I've already touched a little bit on that already. And then we'll get into why do we really need events, right? We're in a different space than we were a couple years ago, and even more so than a few years before that. And where do we sit and how do events fit in that space? We'll go from there and we'll look at the life cycle. This is again a template type of a slide where we'll talk through what does a successful event look like through its stages. And then we'll get into some of the details that, in my opinion, really make the difference between your ability to kind of avoid that burnout piece and successfully plan an event. So managing a plan, managing a team, communication and promoting, and creating impact. And finally, we'll really close on the piece about revenue, sponsorships, other revenue sources. How can you really tap into your existing networks to increase the revenue from your event? And then we'll close on our burnout, just some tips, little tips that I'll share with you from my experience over the years that have really helped in terms of minimizing that piece, especially when you're sometimes the only person and you have to handle multiple other tasks. And finally, we'll do evaluation because in order to have an event that's successful, we have to take it through that full cycle, evaluate it, and decide whether or not it's something that we want to continue. So as I touched on, I do have experience in development in a wider range. My concentration has always been pretty much around operating budgets that sit between 500,000 and 5 million, development teams that are either non-existent and just starting, and up to teams of 4 or 5. In 2022, as you know, we launched our business, and we're really, really focused on a very specific part of the nonprofit sector. The organizations that we work are actually only led by women and people of color, and we're focused on really building equity in the sector because we feel that there's really something that needs to be done about it. In terms of like the types of events that I've done, everything from small house parties to community events to galas. I've rehauled and managed existing events, and I've also worked on several different scales in terms of ideation and unrolling. So first of all, events as part of your donor engagement strategy. I'm just going to minimize the window. Excuse me. So just this, as you can see, is a graph. This is in-person event check-ins, right? As you can see, what I like to do is kind of follow the line chronologically because it can get confusing. So if you start with 2019, what you'll see is kind of where we were, right, pre-pandemic. Then the big dip, and then you take the line for the next year in 2020, and as you can see, it goes very far down. In 2021, events start to pick up again in person. 2022 we continue to accelerate, coming up to the levels almost of 2019. And what's most striking here is 2023. As you can see, we were way above in terms of where we were in 2022 for events in the spring season, and projections at this point would put us way above as well in the fall season. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing is that people are ready. They want to be in person. And so making sure that you're providing some of those opportunities again is really important if you want to tap into a specific sector of your donors, which is those social donors. That's been on the rise for quite a while now. Those are people, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those donors look like. But events are a big part of that strategy and engaging that part of the donor population. I like to make sure to stress that when you're looking at events, it needs to be part of your larger donor engagement strategy. Sometimes you might not need to start an event right away, or you might need to think about it more strategically in terms of what type of event. So it should always be part of a strategy that takes into account other ways of engaging your donors, whether it's through personal means and meeting with your donors or through marketing campaigns. It's important to have that diverse, right, representation and diverse bucket for funding. The second thing is that you really want to make sure that you have a balance. Nobody wants to go and be asked for money all the time. You would like to be in a place where people want to give because they aren't ready to give. And so having a balance between events where your donors are able to engage, right, or your community is able to engage, and ask events and fundraising events is really important when you're thinking about how to engage your donors in a way that's more meaningful. And finally, my last point is that sometimes having an event might not even make sense. Some organizations, maybe they're at a nascent phase, Maybe private parties and things like that make more sense at this point, right? Or maybe the event is no longer in line with what you're doing as an organization. Events are very taxing. And so we need to be very thoughtful when we're doing events and whether it's really a good return on investment for your organization. So this image basically takes you through the life cycle of a well-planned event. Now, what you'll notice on the very bottom is it's a long time frame. You might not have all that time. The important piece to this is that you have all the pieces, the stages. When I look at events, events are a very creative process, right? Every event is different, the creative piece, the scale, how many people are coming. But at the basic level, the structure remains the same. You have to pre-plan an event, you need to set goals, put a budget together, you need to put the logistics together, then you need to invite people. An event needs people to come to it, and then you need to put it in place. So whether your event is small or large, this life cycle can be adapted, but the stages are recommended at each place. One thing I do want to make point of, and that I see a lot of, is that often sponsorship requests go out too late. One of my biggest things that I would want to share with people is get those out early. If you can at least get an idea of what your event's going to be, and you can get those requests out early, you can already build your revenue stream and go into your event feeling confident and not feeling like you have to get it all that day. So I really encourage that as well. The second thing is to invite people with time and to come back over and over again. So maybe you send an invitation and maybe there's a follow-up. Maybe a board member then reaches out. What I think is really important is making sure that you're continually making sure you're inviting and following up on your invitation. When we get to the next stage, we're going to break a little bit of this down because as you can see, there's many pieces. So how do we really pull something like this off? Well, the first phase is truly to pre-plan. This could be you, your leadership team, just thinking through the who, what, when, where, why, how. A meeting of pre-planning can take like an hour. It's really just sitting down and really deciding and making some key decisions that are time sensitive. You start with your audience. Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to do? If you're doing a community gift giving, that's a different audience. You need to adapt your event accordingly. If you're doing a fundraising event, that's a different audience. And so you have to adapt that as well. So that's where you really want to start. Who is this? Who do I want to bring into this room? And then what type of event are you going to do? Is it going to be a luncheon? Is it going to be a breakfast? Is it going to be an art and food pop-up? What is the type of event that you would like to do? I really encourage you not to get bogged down in can I pull it off at this point in your thought process, but to really think about this as if I could do anything, what would it be? And how would it be most successful? Then it's nailing the detail. Putting a date down and a time down early in the year is very helpful, not only for yourself, for your staff, for your team, for your board, but also for the general public. And especially when you start to have recurring events where people start to reach out and they want to know when is it going to come up the next time, being able to keep some consistency and tell people ahead of time is very helpful, both for them and for you. Once you've decided where and when, it's time to decide, or I'm sorry, when, then it's time to decide where, right? And that really depends on that whole what, right? If I'm doing an art and food pop-up, I'm not going to be able to do that in the same space, right? As if I'm going to do a gala, for example. And so being creative in that venue space, I see a lot of money kind of get poured into venues, right? The venue doesn't make the event, you make the event. Finding a venue that can be adapted could easily be a farm. It could be somewhere that you know of downtown that you might not necessarily go to. So really thinking through that and also who your partners are. Do you have a corporate partner that has a space that you can work with? Things like that can be very important when you're thinking about your bottom line. Goals. This is a very big part of the pre-planning process. Again, not important. A lot of times I'll see a struggle. I'm not really sure. I think I want this amount, but I'm not sure. Set a goal. You can change it. It's not set in stone, but in that pre-planning phase, try to start to decide how much money you need to make. And it's really important to think through that return on investment. So not just, oh, I'm going to pull in $150,000, but how much is it going to cost me to pull in that $150,000? And then the final stage, which will come out of that pre-planning meeting, which is building your event plan and recruiting your team. So in the planning process, building the event plan, you're here, you've got goals, you know where the event's going to happen, you have a vague idea of the people who are on board with you. Now it's time to determine the needs to get to that goal. And what I really recommend for that is is it a piece of paper? Is it a Word doc or an Excel? You just start writing down, and then you can organize them in buckets. So when I think about needs, I think, for example, of logistics, right? You need a team manager. You need somebody who's going to send meeting announcements and make sure everybody's getting together. You need somebody who's doing communication. You can't do it all on your own. So the biggest piece in the planning of your plan is to segment your list, right? Who do you know who can do great marketing? Okay, maybe they're really busy. Maybe all they can do is a flyer. Start to think creatively about your networks, about your staff, about professional development, and really start to think about how that can come to play. And then, like I said, put the task list together. It's important. I always start when I'm building a task list from the bottom up, right? I start with the event date. So if I only have 2 months, and then I move up. Okay, so I need to make sure that I have this venue secured first because reservations are hard to do last minute. Try to tick off as much as you can and organize deadlines that you set for yourself. I personally like to put them on my Outlook calendar as a reminder. That way, I'm always having that in front of my eye. Everybody has different systems, though. So this is kind of a sample, I would say, of a working plan that I've worked on. I personally like to use Excel for my list, right, and for my planning, and people who've worked with me know that. Um, my biggest thing on this is nobody needs to see all these details except the core team, right? When you've got a team manager, this is their tool. They might project it during the meeting and lead you through it, but it's important to have one person kind of managing that plan. So this one in particular was for the Black Business Hub, short timeline, right, for the groundbreaking. And as you can see, all kinds of different random things. As we're sitting in meetings, things are coming on the list. And then we're setting dates along the way. The other thing is you'll notice my tabs on the bottom. And so that's that piece I talked about with segmentation. So task list is one thing, but you need to keep track of each of those different things. So what's the program? What are we going to do for communications? Who's on the invite list? So everybody has a different way, but it's very important to segment that work and set deadlines. Recruiting your team. So I'd say this is probably it is the second most important thing when you're trying to avoid burnout, have a good time, and honestly tap into really what you have going on with your organization and get people even more involved. What you want to do is first assess your capacity and the interest of the people around you. Like I mentioned earlier with the marketing example, for example, or a volunteer coordinator. It's important to involve your board, your staff, and your partners. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how that has to be the right space, right? Which is why you have to have everyone on board. And then recruit based off of your needs. There's not one size fit all. Perhaps in one event you need a photographer. Perhaps in one event you need bouquets. Think through the different pieces that you need and make your segmented list based off of that. And then have different roles of involvement. That's what I spoke to with a core and a peripheral group, and we'll get to that in a second. But basically, one person might want to come the day of and hand out water bottles, and that's all they want to do. One person might really, really want to get involved in getting a silent auction committee together and recruit their friends and get all the items. So really try to think about that and tap into what people are interested in and their level and capacity. So here's a sample plan for organizing a team. This would be our first strategic update breakfast. So an engagement event, no ask at this event. But what it shows is the roles, right? Outlining clear roles. One person's doing strategy and marketing. One person's managing the group. One person's taking care of the program. And these roles, we would build those with members from our staff, members from our board, and volunteers that were involved with the organization. And again, the segmentation on the bottom. I can tell you that the team strategy works. A well-managed team leads to a well-managed event. Understanding that different roles are for different people and being sensitive to what people want to do is key. Understanding people's time commitments and how that fits into your team structure is also key. And also understanding that gratitude is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Gratitude needs to be also dependent on that. If you're trying to show gratitude to your staff, you need to think about, hey, they put a lot of work into this. What's the best way to show this gratitude? I worked at one point with somebody who would buy a ticket to spend the night in the hotel for people who worked on the event. Giving people extra time off, things like that is different than when you're trying to show gratitude to a board member, for example. What you see down here on the left, this photo is, I love this photo because there's a lot here going on. As you can see, I've got two people, they're carrying the Schools of Hope cooler out of the back of Centro Hispano. Marcus Miles took the picture. And the reason I bring that up is this is an example of a team, right? Not only because of the people who are here in this picture, right, who came on that day and it came from different places and came together to do things, but also Marcus, who also was part of that team and who volunteered for that. That was his last event before we lost him. And he would volunteer and take photos, right? And in exchange, we would put his logo online. And we had always said that we wished at that point we had the capacity to pay him as an organization. So really thinking about who's there making it happen for you, what are you capable of doing now, and what do you want to do after? Because I think part of forming your team is also forming that sustainable relationship that you can come to year after year. So for example, for the Lucia Harvest Celebration, there's a long-standing relationship with TrueStage, which brings in extra capacity to be able to pull off the event and things like registration. So I think, thinking through that piece is also important. Over here on the right, I like to just look at things visually too, is really how I see kind of it being organized, right? At the core, you've got that team manager. That's that person scheduling the meetings, running the checklist. They have to really be dedicated to engaging all of the other circles. Directly around your team manager is your core team. Your core team is the people that you're meeting with maybe every couple of weeks, maybe even every week in the last month leading up to your event. They're the ones on that sample work plan that are the lead for each of those things. And when you bring them together, it's really about giving them the trust that they're taking on their lead and they're coming to check in with you. They're the ones that are doing the work, and you're just here to kind of keep the project moving. And then there's the event day team. The event day team is a combination of just physical labor, right? People who can stand and help with parking, people who can man a registration desk, but also people who can speak to your organization. An event day team should bring in board members, staff who want to speak about what you do, and you need to value them in that position as volunteers. They can come to your event and just sit down and do nothing, but they choose to come. And if you value them in that role, then you can really enhance that relationship as well. And then finally, on the outer periphery, that's special skills. People like Marcus, people like Eddie, who have very specific skills that you need and that you could count on, and they're only going to be there. They're not going to come to any meetings, right? They're just going to come do what they want to do and what they can do. So this is a long slide. I'm not going to go through all of the details of it, but I've already spoken to the importance of that central team manager role and the planning tool. But again, I like to stress, consider what people like to do. I have worked with people who are perhaps being a receptionist, but are extremely skilled and love to put together decorations on tables. Tap into that. If they love to do it and they want to be part of it, make sure that you're giving them something that they enjoy to do, and then trust them. Trust them in their roles. Check in with them gently, but trust them. Again, not one size fits all. Everyday tasks, for team, totally different time commitment, right? So really making sure that you keep that in mind and that you have ideas of people who could help in one little instance and people who you can count on a longer term. I can't stress enough the use of a sign-up sheet to manage your volunteers and communications. And if visibility can help a volunteer, make sure to offer that as an option, especially if you're not able to financially compensate them at that point. However, I'm going to say it again, like I said for Marcus, we lost him before we could do that. Make sure that that is part of the plan. If you value what somebody is bringing to your event, make sure that you're intentional about making in your budget the money you have to go to that person. And then consider small amenities. If you have a group of corporate folks coming over and they're going to be doing some cleaning in the back of your building, be there. Give them a personal welcome. Maybe give them a t-shirt from your organization so they can take pictures. A water bottle or a social media shout out. There are small things that we can do that make people feel special, right? Appreciated, and that aren't going to just break our budget. And then always give your volunteers what they need to succeed. I cannot say how many times I've seen volunteers come to events and not know where to go, what to do, lost, right? Make sure that in your pre-planning process, you're building in time to maybe do a checklist, right? Or provide the tools that your volunteers need to be successful. If you have a volunteer who's manning a desk, an info desk, make sure you've prepped them in terms of what they're supposed to do and give them knowledge about your organization and materials that they can share. This is very helpful in sustaining that group as well and making sure they have a good time with you and then they come year after year. With that, always have a huddle at the beginning. Make sure everybody's on the same page, even if it's just 5 minutes or it's a quick put our hands together, we're a team moment. Having a huddle before you launch with your full team is really important. And then show your team they matter. Many of them are giving their time because they care about what you do, whether they're people on your staff team or they're people that you know. They're giving and showing them that they matter before, during, and after is a very important thing. And finally, make it easy. Segment it. Make it fun. Order some lunch if you can. It's what you need to do is really make it a team bonding experience. So the other piece is communication. Where do donors hear about fundraising events? And how can we best use our communication channels? There's a very wide range, right? From in person to social media to the press. But as you can see here, many of our donors and stakeholders hear about an event through a friend, a family member, or a colleague. And I like to take this and just apply it more generally, right? In general, you show up at an event because somebody told you or gave you a call or reached out to you personally. That type of reach out is going to be really important when you're deciding the key people you need to have in that space. You don't want to just send an invite to the mayor. You need to find a way to reach personally that person and create a commitment, right, on both ends so that that person actually shows up at your event. Second thing is, as you can see, is the nonprofit reaching out directly. So again, that's looking through your own list one of the things I always would do was I would always do invite lists that were way before, right? And we would say, okay, these are the people that we really need to be here, right? So we need to reach out to them directly. So that's the second key piece. And then visibility. If your event sold out, doesn't mean the press release shouldn't go out. People need to see you. They need to see what you're doing. Even if they're not attending, they need to see that what you're doing is having an impact. So having an approach that's both personal for those you really want to have in that room, but also public, right? So that you're sharing the impact is an important piece of that. So when you're communicating and promoting strategically, use what you have already. You don't need to start new platforms and new initiatives. Look at what you have. Do you have a Facebook page with a few followers or not? Boosts don't cost a lot of money. Do you have a small list of donors or maybe just people that come to your events regularly? Start with what you have. Paper, notes, they still work. They absolutely do. Secondly, agree early on a clear, consistent event description and branding across your platforms. Whether it's an email to a friend or it's a social media post or an announcement in the paper, the language needs to match up. And the reason that's important is that we are bombarded daily by stuff. And if you keep stressing the same clear message, it will make your event more visible, more sustainable, and also more easy for people to become part of. Establish your private and your public communication goals. That's what I spoke to before with the curated pre-invite list versus a visibility thrust. And then use platforms that make sense based off your desired audience. Do you want young people in your room? Do you want diversity in your room? Do you want community influencers to be in that space? If you do, you need to think through the strategy that's going to make sense to make sure that they're there. And then make sure that you're filling the room in a way that is inclusive of the community that you support. Have a scholarship luncheon and make sure you've got tables for each of those families. And if you don't, then try to think about, is there somebody who might support this specific part of the initiative? It is extremely important, I think, when building a meaningful event, to have a meaningful group of people in that space. And that means not just donors, not just white people. It means the people that are impacted. It means the people who are out in the community doing things. So think through that, community members, influencers, traditionally marginalized group, and be intentional in that pre-invite phase to make sure that the room is getting filled the right way. And then cover your event, share it. People want to see what you're doing. The event's over, we're tired. I know I don't want to do anything else, but at bare minimum, share the photos, share what video live from the event. Always try to think about the small things you can do. It doesn't have to be some $20,000 video, although that might be okay in a certain situation, but small things that you can do that can really raise your visibility. And small little tips that I would include too, if you want them to open the email, put parking in the title, right? If you have something to say about something else and it's really important, put parking in the title. It's extremely, there are key words that people kind of just grab onto, right? Sold out strategy. If you're sold out, make sure you're still reserving some tables because somebody's going to call you and they're going to want to get in. And that's going to be an opportunity for you to use that relationship in a way that's beneficial for your organization. So always reserve some tables, right, for those types of moments. So when we're talking about the nonprofit event donor profile, and this is what I talked to at the very, very beginning with the social donors. Social donors give in three different ways, right? They give in events, they give in sponsorships, and they give in occasion challenges. All three of those opportunities are part of an event plan. So events really give you the opportunity to engage all three types of social donors. And social donors always prioritize their giving on three key factors: mission, impact, and ease. So make it an event that's really meaningful and impactful, but where people can give easily and where the systems are in place. So what makes an event meaningful? I like to say smile, right? It should be sustainable. Can you replicate it again? Maybe you don't want to do it every year, but let's say you're doing a 50th anniversary celebration. Would you be able to go back to that plant and do it at 75? Memorable. Was it exciting enough to remember? There's all kinds of gatherings that happen. What is going to be really memorable about what you're doing? Impact. Is it mission aligned? People want to hear about what you have done. And when you bring them together, whether it's even just a 5 or 10 minute moment, never miss a moment to be in front of a group to talk about your mission and your impact. Likable. Did people have fun? Did they get to dance? Did they get to participate in fun activities? Was it an event that they would like enough that they could come again, right? That's something that's really important. And then equitable. Does your guest list include guests from all different backgrounds and specifically from historically marginalized communities? Because if it doesn't, it isn't meaningful. So if you answered yes to these questions, your event would be meaningful. So here are some engagement strategies that work when you're with your event donors. Hearing about the impact of your donation. This is the data that backs up what I just told you. The second thing is your event theme. Being able to think about what is the theme of this event is going to be important in terms of engaging. So for example, are you going to have everybody wear the same color? What's going to be the key word that keeps coming up? Live entertainment, we spoke to that, and the rest we spoke to. So here's a picture of the Lucier Community Education Center Harvest. And so this is an example of an event, right? As you can see, there's a timeline that's been put together. People are talking. Just recently, there was an event where they had a timeline much more. It was for the Madison business, right? People were able to engage around that. Where did you come from? How did you end up here? And they were able to move pieces on the wall and talk to other guests. So when you're designing your program, don't just think about the moment you're speaking, but think about that whole program. Is it mission focused? Is it true to who you are? Don't necessarily need to do things that aren't, right? Simple and classy is better than something that's way over here. Think about the head, the heart, and the hand. How can you engage all three of those pieces for your guests when they're in that space? Is there something they can reflect on intellectually? Something that touches their heart and something that they can make a community project? Perhaps, we had one year at the gala, everybody wrote dreams, right? So, small things again that can engage people in a deeper way. Think about how we all process things. Some of us are visual, some of us are more auditory. Think about the senses and how those things can come into play in terms of how you're greeting your guests. Branding, branding, branding. Make sure the PowerPoint on the screen always has your logo and the theme color for your event so that when people are taking pictures, it will be in the background of all those pictures. Keep your program from being too long. It can be tempting to continue to go, right? Probably tempting for me today. I don't even know what time it is, so I should probably check. Yes, I have like 5 minutes. But making sure that it's not too long so that you're not losing your attention and the excitement is really important. So sometimes that means cutting things out. If you can, incorporate an exciting announcement and then build in ways for people to engage directly. So increasing revenue. We all want unrestricted revenue for our organization. And what you're seeing here is how an event can tap into multiple buckets at the same time, right, to build that revenue. You can get donations at your event, you can sell tickets, you can have corporate partnerships, you can get a matching gift to get other people to donate. You can have event activities like tequila pulls and silent auctions. You can sell t-shirts and cups. You can solicit sponsorships. You can talk to businesses about in-kind donations that'll offset your revenue. So when you're really thinking through your budgeting process, think about all those buckets, right? And how you can bring that in, because the more diverse that you have in your revenue sources, the more sustainable your event's going to be. So this is a sample event gift chart, right? At the pre-planning phase, it's a gala, 700 people. The net goal is 100,000. Make sure you're doing this type of work at that planning phase. You always want to make sure that you calculate how many, to meet your bottom line, how many of each level do you need? Now, granted, you may get two 10,000s or you may get one, but having some kind of a plan and how many asks should always be double that amount. And then ticking through those as you go. This can be very helpful as you're trying to build that revenue before the event even starts. And then thinking through your event activities. What are those different variable revenue sources that you could tap into? Is there a donor that is committed to your organization that might be motivated by a match? Really think through what makes sense for you. So I'm not going to spend time on this because we don't have too much time at this point, but this really goes through those three types, right, of social donors and talks about really how that impact weighs out. And as you can see at the top of that line, that mission piece that we spoke to is always going to be the driving factor. So when you're building your event, that budget piece and that gift chart I just showed you needs to happen really, really early in the process if you can. You can, again, you can always adjust it, right? But you want to start to have an idea of how much it's going to cost, because that will help you to say to yourself, who do I know who can maybe provide this or that, and maybe in exchange for that. So being able to do that early is important. Create urgency. There's lots going on. Make it hot. Make it something people want to be part of. Get it in the press. Talk to influencers that make sense. Stay current on your community. I cannot say how much you might have an event and there's a world disaster the day before. You can't just continue to do things the way they are. You have to see how things in your community and the world and pivot as necessary. One year we had an event and there were ice raids in the week before. We dropped the ticket price, made it a suggested donation, and got it out to the press that we really wanted to focus on what was going on. So really think about how you can use those moments to bring people together even more. Create those clear plans. Don't overspend. It really doesn't look good. You don't need the marble pedestal to talk. It might feel good, but you don't necessarily need it. Consider a suggested donation approach. This can be sometimes more appropriate and can generate actually more unrestricted revenue for you. Make sure you have the right people, like we said, and really have a call for action and a moment in the program where you ask people to give if it's a fundraising event. Sometimes you need to stop though. Here are the big ones. You're not making money. Don't keep doing an event. If your goal is to raise money, don't do it if you keep going in the red. Your staff is burned out. They don't want to participate. Stop the event or reevaluate it. You really need to bring your staff into this so that they're part of it and they're engaged. Maybe you don't have the capacity, just pure and simple. Or it doesn't make sense because maybe you're trying to do a circus and you're trying to do something completely different in your mission work, right? And it doesn't make sense. Or maybe your reach is global and it's hard to bring people together in an in-person setting. The event is outdated or somebody else. Sometimes we're better partners to others than we are trying to do the same thing other people do. And when you're doing the burning, when you're feeling like you're burning out, and I know I've been there, I was on, basically had just given birth to my daughter, right? And I would check in my fundraising numbers because she was born on December 30th, right? Don't ever let yourself get there. You matter. Your team matters. Plan ahead if you can and plan a lot. That will keep you, even if you're only doing one task 6 months before, that's one task you don't have to do the 2 or 3 weeks before when you're trying to do so much else. Assemble that team, assign those leads. They are going to be the supporters and the people that make it possible. And then make sure you're always moving through. the day before, walk through your event as a guest. Identify those potential pressure points that are going to come up when your guests come through the door. Is everybody going to be crowded at the food table? Are there enough people at registration? Overstaff rather than understaff, and communicate all the time. And finally, show appreciation, which also means allowing for time off for yourself and for the others who've been with you through the journey after the event. So make sure that that time off is part of the event plan. And when you're hitting those pressure points, whether it's registration, like I said, that's a big one, or name tags, the errors that you can make when you're printing name tags, parking situations, food stations, walk through it as a guest. Really think through how it would feel that day and make sure you have plenty of volunteers and that they're easy to find. So in terms of evaluation, everybody wants to just give up. Whew, I'm tired, etc. You don't have to do it the next day, everyone. Take some time, process it, feel it through, have discussion with your staff, have discussion with your board, have discussion with guests. On the right is a sample event evaluation form that you can share with people and gather information. But make sure you're taking the time to do that because it needs to continue to be relevant and you need to be able to continue to make a return on your investment in terms of your own capacity internally. So make sure when you're doing your plan that you're tracking and evaluating, right? Both in terms of fundraising, but also engagement. Did you have a lot of social media likes? Was it heavy in the press? Did a lot of people want to come and it sold out? Keep track of that kind of information. And please, please, when you're reporting out on your event, please report in net dollars. I have seen a lot of gross reporting. We need to be honest about what our events are costing and what they bring in. So make sure that you're both evaluating and also reporting on your net rather than your gross, and evaluate your time commitment. So that would all come through in a SWOT. And your final decision would always be whether or not to do it again. So thank you. This is a picture of the team the first year of the gala. And again, these are the people that made it happen, right? We have the executive director, the board president, a committed volunteer, a community connector. Bringing all these people together and the joy of the event is extremely important. And that's actually Suhei Pfizer from Park Bank. So thank you for having me and sorry for going over.
Thank you, Nina. You have definitely not gone over. Your timing is actually perfect. We're gonna transition if you don't mind. There we go. I'm sorry, I'm waiting for my camera to pop up. We do have a few questions based on all of that information, and I will say it was quite a bit, as it should be. If anybody has ever been involved with planning events, it takes a lot of work, as you've very clearly described, and a lot of forethought. So we're going to start with a question from Susan. She's asking, is it possible to hold events that deepen the attendees' commitment to the mission of the nonprofit as opposed to merely entertaining? We are a volunteer community radio station, so we don't have many "you've changed my life" stories. What methods would we consider to create a meaningful event?
Well, so I'm going to take the first part, and that's an absolute yes. I think that sometimes it's actually much better to do it that way, and people get entertained or engaged because what you're doing actually matters. I would need to know like a little bit more, right, about your specific organization to be able to really advise you in terms of that. But it sounds like starting something small, simple, and that's really about showcasing what you're doing. It could even be virtual. I mean, if you're radio, right, there's pieces that you can do in that space as well. But even if it's just bringing in somebody special to talk about radio and then the value in a small setting, that can be helpful as well.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have a series of questions actually related to the timing, the cycle of timing that you started with.
Yeah.
So one of the questions is, what is the best time to send out a press release about an event so that we don't get lost in a news cycle?
Yep. So for that, one is again keeping track too of what's going on. Like if graduation week is happening and there's a bunch of other nonprofits going on, being thoughtful to what's going on. I like to see things go out probably just like a couple weeks at most before, if not the week of. Also embargoed press releases that that you can release directly after. Let's say if your event sold out and you still want to be able to share the story and the news and impact at this larger level, then you could go ahead and do it that way as well. But I agree, do not send press releases way ahead of time, as close to the event. And then remember, it's about building. So if there's one that goes out, make sure all your board members are posting it, or you're posting it at least, right? So that you're sharing that release. And so building that momentum through less, but getting out to more.
Okay, that's great. You mentioned contacting sponsors early. So Darcy is wondering what you consider early.
Yeah, I think usually around the 6 months, I would recommend. Right about 4 months, a lot of applications might close. It also depends on the fiscal year of your sponsor, and that's something that they might be able to share with you. But when you're in that pre-planning phase, start writing down all those corporations and then just start to look, right? Do they accept sponsorships? How much ahead you need to get them? And then take it back from there and see if you have a contact.
Okay, thank you. I have my own follow-up. I'm sorry, I'm butting in on the audience's questions. But knowing that you are looking to plan events 12 months or so in advance, how do we know who we may be competing with? Because we know that there are many events supporting a lot of organizations and that there are certain time periods where events seem to fall heavier in the calendar. So how do we keep track of things if we're planning 12 months ahead of time and don't know for certain what might be coming up?
So yeah, good question, because that, as I said, is like a template, right? So when we're thinking that's like it's for a gala, it happens every year type of event. Like I said, shrinking that to whatever makes sense. It's just that we have to go through each of those phases, right? We got to plan it. You got to find an audience. You got to get that message out and you got to get them. So sometimes that does make sense. Something might just come up. The other thing is you might be able to get some of those things. So maybe you don't have a date, right? But you could put TBD, but you know that you have a committed partner who would probably support it. So getting an idea of that ahead of time can help. But there's also different types of events, like Peter. The event that comes up every single year, every September, is a different animal than the event that comes up because we just hit the pandemic and now we got to do a virtual. So always got to be on our feet in that space as well.
I, I agree and I appreciate the response. I know it's something that we have battled with a few organizations that I've been involved with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Rowan would like to know, to whom should you give comp tickets to your event? Because you obviously want to maximize revenue. Are we looking at press, donors, community leaders? Any suggestions?
Yeah, so that's to me, honestly, comp tickets should go to it depends on who you're supporting, right? First and foremost. But you should think about your community, you should think about your staff, you should think about your team. Donors should pay, right? People who are attending from corporate should pay. Community leaders might be a conversation, right? Because the thing is that you got to think about too what people are bringing into your space and the value that they're adding to that space. I tend to say don't comp unless it's those specific groups that we just spoke about, because donors and individuals should pay if you have a ticketed event. And so when I spoke about those like reserved ones, those aren't like comp. Those are reserved paid tickets, right? If your event sold out. Does that answer the question?
I
Hopefully.
I think so. I'm hoping Rowan will follow up if it did not. We have another question. How do you suggest finding volunteers to help with your event if your board is not active or you have a very small or not well-known organization?
So again, it depends on the scale of your event, right? So if this is a small gathering, you might not need many volunteers. if you're trying to pull off a big event and you're a small organization, there might be some thought about why am I doing this event, right? Is it worthwhile? Do I have the capacity to do it? If your board is disengaged and your staff is burnt out, remember I said that's the time to take a pause, because what you need to do is work on those relationships, and solidifying that space and making it a healthy, happy space for that to happen.
Okay.
And for finding volunteers, I'll add, you might be surprised, you could go on Nextdoor, for example. There's people who are looking, right, to get involved. And so thinking through social media, but also thinking through the different spaces that you're in, right? And people who've given to you or things in the past. But if your board isn't on board, it's probably time to evaluate whether you should continue.
I I think that's excellent advice, Nina. One more, do you have any best practices for soliciting feedback from guests after events? Is online survey, QR code, or paper forms better in certain circumstances than others?
Yes, I think it's important to solicit feedback from multiple those circles that I showed, right? And that it's going to depend. You want to bring that core group together and you want them to tell you what worked and what didn't work, right? If you're planning on doing this again, that needs to be a conversation. But all the other volunteers can get a survey, right? And then your guests, you should always provide an opportunity for them to provide feedback in an anonymous setting, because people are always inclined to say it was great, right? It was awesome, loved it. Um, the other thing is talking to people around you that you trust that may talk to other people and telling them, tell me the truth. Did this person have a good time at that event? Did they feel it was impactful? Do you think they'll come again? So also thinking on that interpersonal level as well.
Great, great. I'm gonna end us on one more, and it's a little bit of a bigger topic, so I'm gonna give you a little time to to think about it maybe. We have somebody asking if you have any advice on determining which donors we should really be pursuing for larger sponsorships. And I know that's not necessarily tied directly to event planning or running one.
Yeah, oh, that's fine. That's a super important part when you're doing the nonprofit event stuff. So I would look, okay, so first, definitely check out the top 100 employers every year in Business Magazine. They have the most amount of people working in their businesses. They have the highest level of ability to get. Secondly, try to think about if they're aligned, right? If they're in the health space, they may want to give to like health oriented things, right? Or if they're in the environmental space, they might want to do that. So it's not like don't build yourself an expensive list. Put 10 down that seems solid, that have a high level of financial capacity and that could be matched well. And then the third thing is, if you do have a board that is involved in the community, in the corporate community, ask them, right? You want to make sure that that is part of also building your board, right? If you're bringing corporate people on your board, there has to be like more to it. So also going to them and getting those referrals. But at the very basics, start with that. If you have nothing, start with that top 100 employers and then nail it down based on interest.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that's a great spot for us to wrap up today. Nina, this has been excellent. We've had a lot of great
Thank
discussion.
you.
We learned a lot from your presentation. There's a lot there. So if people have questions, are they free to reach out to you with anything?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Good,
Thank you
good.
for having me.
Yes, and thank everybody for participating with us and for viewing the presentation. We look forward to seeing you next time and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you, Peter.